Okay, I think we are live on air. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are doing well today.
Hello.
Is everyone, Cecilia, everyone in?
We are, yep. So let's go in about 30 seconds. I guess what I can kick it off with, it's just thank you all for joining. A bit of, I guess, housekeeping with this Ask an Expert webinars. When you're not speaking, please stay on mute. And if you do have a question that you want to ask, please use the raise your hand feature, and then we'll call your name when we're ready to take your question. And also, if you can think of any questions during the session that you'll put into the, or that you like to put into the chat window, please do so, and then we'll read it out for you. But yes, this is very much an engagement session, so please use those features and ask any questions that you may have. So getting ready now to hand it off to Mark to set off this session.
Okay, most importantly, I have to be the one who unmutes himself. So thank you very much for showing up in today's Ask an Expert session. Now, thank goodness I'm not the only expert. We actually have another wonderful expert here. His name is Ben Cousins, and he and I will hopefully be able to demystify what Microsoft's world of project management looks like. Look, I thought, as we usually do that with these expert sessions, set the scene a little bit of why we decided to go down this path. This was actually one of the requests that we had from one of our last sessions. People are starting to get quite interested purely because Microsoft released that new project management capability called Project for the Web. And we wanted to outline where this fits into the ecosystem. I hope that you can see my screen, and if you can see people before process, then you are absolutely in the right channel, which is good. The reason why we outline that concept of people before process really goes back to the way that project portfolio management systems have actually been implemented in the past. It very much was more like process before people. And if you wanted to create a project, and if you needed to manage a project, you had to strictly follow these particular processes. Well, the world really has changed. It does make sense to think about a project portfolio management in the way how we initially or still structure project management, especially project portfolio management, and how organizations actually want to work these days. So what I'll do is I thought I'll show you what sort of the traditional Ppm execution component looks like. For those of you who are regular viewers of our session, you have seen that before. This is how I like to outline how project portfolio management conceptually is implemented in organizations and why that is implemented that way. So first of all, of course, every organization has strategic goals, and these strategic goals need to be somehow communicated. And we do this through project portfolio management, where we really determine these high-level initiatives in order to ensure that the organization has the ability to execute their strategic goals. Well, we then have very often a governance function in between that. We traditionally refer to that as the PMO, and really that governance function ensures that all of the project and programs are conducted in a formal and consistent way, so that we know the current project progress, really trying to predict the future, as I like to call that, in a structured manner. Well, and then of course we have a whole bunch of departments or areas that are then ultimately in charge of executing those projects. And if everything goes well, we then of course manage those initiatives and maintain the information that then goes up to the PMO that assists in the execution of teams and ensures that report progress is always up to date, so that you can have your monthly portfolio status reports, which then of course also means that my portfolio management has the ability to evaluate the success of their initiatives, and if that is the case, then we accomplish our strategic goals and our executive gives us the big thumbs up. So that's really conceptually how project portfolio management in most organizations happen. Now, some of them, start with a PMO and then organically grow up and down. Others do that in a more structured way. So there are different ways how you can actually form this particular picture. However, it does outline one big challenge, and we've seen this really in the life of Sensei over the last, 10 and me over the last 20 years, that very often organizations really don't necessarily talk the same language when it comes to executing projects and aligning them to strategy. And that's what we refer to as the execution gap of strategy. And they have a whole bunch of different reasons. And in our experience, it's actually sort of that red fluffy cloud there that is all a little bit fluffy. How do I update my project? And every project manager does it sort of a little bit their own way. And there's not a lot of consistency. And that really forms our biggest challenge. When we think about the implementation of a new capability like project portfolio management, we want to ensure that we provide consistent and trustworthy data. Now, in most organizations, that's actually a challenge. And I always like to outline this as an example. I'm an accountant by trade, German. And when I go to my board and I give them my profit and loss statement, my board would actually be able to make an informed decision and would trust the information. If I go to organizations and go to the board and I give them a portfolio status report and I would ask them, would you bet your career on that? Most executive would probably say, yeah, probably not. So what that translates to me is that the information we provide is not trustworthy, and therefore, of course, it doesn't make sense to maintain that data. I know I slightly over-exaggerate, but I wanted to make that point of the importance of providing consistent and trustworthy data. So why are those challenges? And really, we see that quite often with departments struggle with the administration of project governance, because most organizations are not in the business of creating projects and managing projects, but they're in the business of accomplishing other strategic goals, and they just try to do that, of course, through the mechanism of project management. And surely everybody on this call knows that there is a different maturity level in every organization. We have the professional project manager, which of course that's their job to manage projects, but most projects in organizations are actually managed by organizational citizen project managers, I like to call them, or accidental project managers, subject matter experts that are just put onto that project and say, you go and manage it. So really not all projects are managed by professional project manager, but by what I refer to as citizen project managers. Microsoft calls them accidental project managers. I don't like that term because we are all naturally project managers. Well, and therefore, in addition to, of course, having those different maturity and knowledge levels of project management, teams quite often have different methodologies as well. So if you go into a construction, for example, you have that classical waterfall capability and waterfall approach of managing projects. If you are more in an IT environment, and actually these days much wider than IT, of course, then you want to be able to manage your projects in sprint using an agile methodology, and really that needs to be linked. And if you think about it, by incorporating these different methodologies, project portfolio management tools are often just simply too complex. And we see that again all over the world, that often there is I call it a love-hate relationship between project managers and the project management tool, because they only ever have the perception of reporting. The only reason why they need to maintain that solution is to report up. Well, and that really has been a big sticking point when it comes to user adoption and therefore managing, of course, rigorously these kinds of projects. So clearly, Microsoft recognized that, and they recognized that, funnily enough, through other competing products that are out on the market, the Monday.coms and the Asana.coms, which are really intuitive task management tools for the citizen project manager. And Microsoft, after recognizing that, went actually that path of providing teams with easy to use tools to manage projects. And that really has become quite apparent. And that's also the reason why Microsoft ultimately decided to give us a new tool to ensure that no matter what kind of level of maturity or what kind of job you have, that you can actually work the way that you want to work. And I think that's super important, because in the past we've got a whole bunch of different tools, and Microsoft itself, when you look at this, these are only Microsoft tools right now that allow you to manage tasks and projects. Now, trying to combine all of that is of course quite difficult. So Microsoft really went down the path of saying, hey, we want to make sure that teams work the way they want and enterprises get the results that they need. So instead of me pushing a process and a heavy-duty tool to all of my project managers, no matter whether these are citizen project managers or professional project managers, is not the way to do it. Microsoft decided, and I think that's a very smart idea, to incorporate intuitivity and work management to combine that bigger picture. So what that ultimately means from our point of view is Microsoft starts to expand the addressable audience from what we traditionally have managed through, EPMOs, product strategy and reporting, or professional project managers that really need to know earned value and need to have a schedule rigor with, baselining and all of those things that I need to manage as part of a project, to now also include providing a bigger picture for citizen project managers to manage those information sets, and even information workers themselves, where they have just simply the ability to create a list of tasks and drag those tasks over through a Kanban board, for example. And that's really the main reason why Microsoft has gone down that particular path. Now, I wanted to outline, before I go and show you this a little bit more, I just wanted to sort of outline the solutions that Microsoft sort of has as part of their Office 365 capability. So for those of you who are working with Office 365, I hope that you have discovered the capability of Planner. I always like to say that this is sort of the Trello compete in your Office 365 environment, a very nice and easy tool to manage your task list and drag them over and assign them to people, to then really now into this project for the web. And that is not the new kid on the block anymore. They actually released that last year, November, but it's still reasonably new in comparison to the project online capability. And as you can see, it has to do with the complexity of the need. So if you have small projects where it is fine to have citizen project managers, project for the web is there. If you have the ability, if you need a rigorous professional project management tool, then project online and project, of course, is still the ultimate PPM capability. That being said, Microsoft very clearly communicated one thing. They communicated that project online will essentially sail into retirement. Now, I know this sounds drastic, and it's not that bad, believe me. As it is with every technology, really, there needs to be a reinvention of the technology. Let's not forget, Project Online resulted from Project Server, and Project Server from Project, and Project is over 35 years old now. well, for people like me, that's young, but for other people, that is very old. But it is a very, very established tool these days. So Microsoft last year communicated to the wider audience and to us that Project Online is still going to be fully supported, of course, for at least another 5, if not 10 years. Security and performance will still be maintained, so there's no need for anybody who uses Project Online to panic and say, oh, this is not going to work in the future anymore. This is still a very established tool. However, the innovation when it comes to new capabilities will now flow into Project for the Web, and ultimately Project for the Web will become just simply Project to cover all of these different capabilities. So that's my 2-second spiel, 16-minute spiel about the reason why Microsoft went down this path. Now, first of all, thank you very much for those of you who have submitted some of those questions. And before I go into the questions, I thought I'll give you a little bit of a quick tour on how Project is actually how Project for the Web is actually managed. So what I've done here is I'm, in our Office 365 tenant, just like you, in Office 365, you have your apps, and when you subscribe to Project, you literally then just simply select that project site, and it will then bring you into Project Home. Now, Microsoft envisages that this will be the one-stop shop to create new projects. Probably question that a little bit, but right now you have the ability to just simply create a new project by saying, hey, I want to add a new project. By the way, there's also another capability which is called Roadmap. I'm not going to go into Roadmap too deeply today, but just in one sentence, Roadmap enables you to bring a lot of projects together and give you a visual representation of your product or project roadmap. That's what this is about. So here I can now very easily just simply create a new project, and really the idea is that users have the ability to quickly go into this particular project. So right now I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call this Ben, what should I call it? The Benjamin.
Ask an expert.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, ask an expert project. First of all, you can of course set your start date and all of those things if you wanted to. The project manager, now in this instance, I'm just going to set myself as the project manager, and I now created the framework of my projects, and I can start outlining some tasks. I have my tasks that can very easily be created, and you will see that this is all on the web, and of course we can all work at the same time together on those tasks, which is super cool. And of course you have the ability to very quickly create your your own structure where you say, oh, you know what, this one here, let me just put this up. Oh, sorry, I need to
checking
yeah, no more check-in. Woo! Yeah, which I remember when this feature was released, and that made a lot of sense at the time, but now it just doesn't make sense anymore. And as you can see, you can very quickly create tasks. You can open up this particular task and you can build that. I can now say, hey, I'm going to assign myself to this particular task, or I may even want to assign Ben to this. And here's Ben, and I assign that to him. And what Microsoft now says is, hey, you have a new user, and I'm sure you want to collaborate with them. So you actually have the ability to create a new group, which is a Teams group when you use Teams in particular, or I can just simply add them to a particular project. So in this instance, I'm just going to assign them to my 2009 IT program, and have now created my project. So yeah.
That's basically replacing the old-fashioned project team feature in Project Professional, right? We're building a team out here, but we're actually leveraging an Office 365 group.
Yeah, well, and it's a very good point, Ben, because I remember when we spoke to Microsoft and we asked about that, he said, well, we never understood why you have to build a team before you can assign it. These are all extra clicks that are time consuming that you don't really need. Here, they just simply interrogate your entire environment, your entire Office 365 environment. And that makes a lot of sense, of course. And you can set your start and finish dates based on data, the duration. You can easily set that. You have a concept of buckets. I'll come back to this one. And of course, I can very easily say, hey, right now I have 320 hours because I've got 20 days duration. It automatically creates that. And I've now created this task. And of course, you have then the ability to add a whole bunch of additional information, finish dates, start dates, all of those things. Now, in addition to that, we talked about different mechanisms on how you manage those tasks. So this is one way, just creating your list. And I'm just going to tool my milestones here. And I know milestones have still a 0 duration. And here I'm just going to say this is 2 days and this is 3 days, just so that we have a bit of data available. And then I have the ability to say, well, you know what? Instead of me creating sort of a work breakdown structure, I want to be a little bit more flexible in, let's say, in an agile sense. And then I'm going to say, hey, here's my sprint 1, and here is my sprint 2, etc., etc. Here, well, actually, I would probably call this one here my backlog. And then I would call this one here my sprint 1. And because it's my first sprint, and because we are all we are all in the world of millennials. Of course, you now have the ability to add a nice little to add a nice little icon to it, so you can actually put a little bit of gamification in there. Oh, where is oops? Let's go back into here. Where is it? Oh, here's my little Amy icon. I can say, hey, let's start kicking this off. Or let's put just a little bit more information in there. So sprint 1, and then I literally have the ability to say, hey, I'm going to start with task 1, and then I'm going to start with task 2, and I think my task 3 needs to be coming into my sprint 2. And again, you have the ability to very easily create those kinds of buckets and can allocate them. You will see that this kind of feature is the same feature that Planner has, and you will also find that Planner and Project for the Web will actually have the same kind of capability, with the difference that Project for the Web then has the ability also to have things like dependencies, things that Planner currently doesn't have. So how can I create those dependencies? Of course, we still have the classical Gantt chart, just like we always had that in MS Project as well. And look at that, I can very easily now create dependencies on the web and have a nice and intuitive way of managing that. And really, this is the idea for citizen project managers, to have that capability. Now, what I'll do is I quickly show you what sort of a finished project schedule looks like. Here is a project schedule where I have some of my project tasks already completed. Others I still have to complete. And it is smart enough these days to determine whether I'm going to be on time or not, because it knows what day today is, and it knows that the finish date obviously can't be achieved anymore unless you have a time machine. And again, with the boards, you literally have the ability, to create these lists of boards here as well, and your timeline. So this is just a quick sneak preview.
Add one thing there, the beautiful extension to the board is that when we're using the board within Project for the Web, we can actually see effort and duration in our tasks, which is something Planner just doesn't do, and doesn't give us the granularity. So we get an amazing extension to being able to use boards and actually see, marking our effort that we might have for a particular task at hand.
All right, that's better. Someone muted me. Okay, that's better. So yes, you're absolutely right, Ben. This really is sort of that journey of project maturity from a plan where I just want to manage tasks to a lightweight project where I want to manage some dependencies and effort and duration to then, of course, very complex scheduling capability that you have in MS Project itself. And yeah, see here, this is my test scope. I'm going to put that my scope exercise as a dependency and have literally that ability to do so. So yeah, that's we wanted to make sure that that you see what capabilities project have. Microsoft continuously increases that capability. One of them is a copy project. So one of the issues we had when this was released in November is that you didn't have the ability to create templates. Now that has changed. You actually have the ability to use an existing project and create a copy of that, which essentially acts like a template. All right, so this is just a quick excursion of of how project for the web looks like. Now, first of all, I would like to open up for questions. And before I go into the pre-submitted questions, does any one of you have any questions on what we've been showing so far? Okay.
Hi, Mark. It's Jackie Hooper from Synergy.
Hey, Jackie.
Yeah, this is terrific. It looks fantastic. The question I've got is, where does the data within these project web projects, is that right? With the web projects, where does that centralize? So as you know, here at Synergy, we have a huge amount of traditional waterfall projects, and we have lots of software projects that they're really keen to move on to this type of functionality for sprints, etc. But where would we draw all of this information in centrally from both?
That's a great question. So when one of the main reasons why Microsoft went down this path of project for the web, what they actually do is they take the schedule capability that's currently in project and project online and cloudify that. The information itself is stored in a capability of Office 365 that's called Common Data Service, CDS. Common Data Service really is a data layer where information is stored, and no matter what kind of application you use, you will always be able to draw from this Common Data Service. You will find Common Data Service is the new way, and actually, in my opinion, the only way going forward, because you are not trapping information based on an application or based on a database like that is right now in Project Online. You need to have a Project Online. Well, Project Online doesn't even have that database. We have that reporting database where we cluster that information together. Now, Project for the Web actually saves that information through Power Apps, through Common Data Service, into all of those tables that are held within your Office 365 environment. So what you see here right now, I'm in part of Power Apps, that's sort of that business layer and the ability to extend Project for the Web dramatically. And the data is stored in what we refer to as entities. You can compare entities really with tables that are then accessible and very easily accessible. So that means the centralization of these tasks, you can super easily create consolidated reports very quickly, which you can use Power BI or any kind of other capability. Ben.
Yeah, Mark, I was just going to add exactly right. And the way that we can look at this information is that Project Online had three entities. Really, that's all it really had. There was the project entity, there was the task entity, and then there was the resource entity. So the beauty of Project for the Web is we are now not limited to those three entities. So we can start to manage all of the other extensions to your business processes around the portfolio management directly in the project or the business application itself. So we no longer have to extend and customize as much. We're actually just configuring, which is absolutely a massive step forwards.
100%, Ben. You know, this changes the way we have today to extend it and really make sure that we have people before process. The ability for me to embed processes now so deeply into applications and consolidate that information is super easy. Here's a nice example. This is nothing else but a Power BI report that goes into the CDS data and outlines that. Yeah? And then it depends what you want to do in Power BI. You have, you know, abilities to very easily see, hey, why is this amber? And, you know, what's the current status? To the point where you can drill all the way through into the project status. But really all I use here right now is Power BI, really. And in Power BI, then it's up to you how you would like to manipulate those data sets. So here, for example, is a project with all of the tasks that I manage in Project for the Web. And I can very clearly see that. I can say, hey, tell me which ones are late right now. I look here, Project PM guidance is late. Well, you know what? Let me open this, and you know, you suddenly just simply open this particular project, and not only that project in that instance, because you know it's all saved in common data service. It will now open up the project, open up the task details, and you then have the ability to amend that. Sorry if that takes a little bit longer. I'm actually in our development environment, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are just pumping things in there right now. But that's really the idea, to ensure that we have the ability to you know, to consolidate that data through common data service. Mark that word CDS, common data service, in the back of your mind, because you will see in 2-3 years time this will be very common. Ben.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Jackie, one of the other beautiful things we've got here with the new model is that actually the reporting hub, the Sensei reporting hub, was ultimately the tool that gave you the extensibility before. Now that's actually all embedded into CDS. So yeah, ultimately the information lives in your environment from now on. You no longer have to rely on this third-party data source. Everything can be completely contained in your own Office 365 environment. No external exposure to the internet for that data from a third party like Sensei. So this is a massive step forwards from a capability point of view.
Definitely, and the extensibility is just mind-blowing. Where you suddenly, you know, you combine work management, business as usual, with super complex capabilities, and actually the power of Power Apps and Common Data Service makes it that easy to extend.
Can I just ask just one question based on what you've just said, Ben? So I think based on this and knowing that Project Online will continue for the next 5 to 10 years, our waterfall quite happy in Project Online. Our agile guys would be quite happy, I think, with Project Web.
Can we aggregate? Can we run two systems together? Yeah, I hear you.
Can we reroute our Project Online data to CDS?
Well, you are very lucky. So first of all, Project Online data will never flow into CDS. That's not going to happen, I don't think. There will, and I'll talk about the conversion over time, but because you are one of our customers, Jackie, you have the reporting hub, and what the reporting hub does is it automatically takes the CDS data into your reporting hub, and that combines it.
Okay, great. Terrific. Thanks.
Okay. Cecilia.
Thank you. Yes, there's a couple of questions that have come in on the side.
Cool.
One of them is from Rel that asks, does the project for the web replace Planner or the projects in Project Online?
So it will, no, good question. So it will not replace Planner. Planner is there to stay. Planner is the Trello, I'm going to say. But you know, you wouldn't want to manage all of your project in Trello, obviously. So no, Planner is here to stay. But the feature set of Planner is incorporated in Project for the Web, just a little bit more, like dependencies, assignments, etc., what you can't do in Planner. And really that's the difference. It is the information worker uses Planner. The citizen project manager uses project for the web, and the professional project manager uses project online. However, project online and project for the web will grow together over the coming 5 years, really, to be on feature set, on feature parity, so that in the future all of those projects will be able to conform with the project for the web capability.
Thanks, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one. There's a couple of more here.
Yeah, bring it in.
One from Michael Wagner asking, is SharePoint still underpinning the new solution?
No, SharePoint really is SharePoint lists and all of those, collaboration capability are in addition to project, of course. And really, what SharePoint has become, it has become a puzzle piece of groups and teams. So when you create a new team in Teams, it will automatically just associate SharePoint to it. However, the data source, the storage of SharePoint is not CDS. I'm sorry, my dog is running backwards and forwards here, running loopy. So
Thanks, Mark.
I add to that one very quickly. So one of the things that we have now is ultimately what we had to achieve in SharePoint before is now achievable in CDS.
That's exactly right.
We're no longer having to just have this disparate information. We've actually got one data source, fully relationship focused, so that a record is no longer sort of disconnected from its supporting information. It's all one record now, or all one relationship, which is fantastic. And what that means is we can build out reports and dashboards and new applications and interfaces so quickly because it's an ingrained relationship. It just naturally comes together. It nearly offers you the information. You say, I want to see some project information. Well, do you want to see the risks information that's supporting that? It just brings it up into the forefront. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is a nice example here. So what we do is we extend project for the web capability with Power Apps. And as you can see, just like we used to do this with SharePoint lists, we had to go to an extra site, and it was quite clunky because the schedule was separate, and then risks and issues were separate, and documents were separate. Well, here I literally have things like my risks, my issues. This is my work environment as a project manager, where I maintain my decisions, my change requests. So the underpinning information here is all common data service, and of course my project management capability, or my project for the web capability, is just part of that overarching picture. So that really showcases the ability to extend project for the web as the execution tool and ensure that you have all of the other artifacts you need to manage as a project, like risks, issues, etc., always consistently across across that area. All right. Are there any other questions, or can I? Yeah, cool.
There is a couple of more. Does it support the concept of custom task fields? Brendan Connolly asked that question.
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know who asked that question, but so that will come natively. However, because we have common data service, I can extend the task entity with additional custom attributes that I can associate to that task. So the short answer is yes, absolutely. The longer answer is, in order to incorporate that into the user interface of project for the web, you will actually have to open up a Power App in order to maintain that.
Thanks, Mark. And then the last one, that's from the chat here, from Morel again. Is CDS no different from an Azure data warehouse, for example?
Yeah, so a data warehouse really is there to report across all of the information. That's what a data warehouse is supposed to do. Common data service, as the name suggests, is actually a service that allows you to not only store data, but manipulate data and automate data. So there's much more behind common data service than in a data warehouse where you just simply plug the data in there, and then you can, you know, consolidate that, of course, with reporting tools and all of those things in common data service. And let me just quickly show you that, just so that you see that power behind that as well. Let me just
the other part that comes with the CDS is a presentation layer. We don't get a presentation layer in a standard data warehouse.
Yeah, look, and
presentation layer here. Yeah.
So look, I'm just going to go into my project. So when I'm, you know, again, this is essentially the database of everything, as I like to call it. And here's now, you know, here are now my projects. I can see that here's my project guide. So the project for the web data is actually stored in this particular entity. And really, look at that. You can, you know, you can from here, you can manipulate fields, you have business rules, you have different views, you have different forms, of course, also dashboards and charts. And so you can do much more with common data service manipulating that kind of information in comparison to a data warehouse that pulls the data from different data sources, databases, and then you report against it. And that's sort of the difference between those two. Okay, now I know that there were some really cool questions submitted earlier. Look, I encourage you to do that because that allows us to prepare a little bit, and not just that, it always shows us what kind of additional questions you may have. So one of the questions was, hey, what are some of the transition processes to move Microsoft Project Online to Project for the Web? It's a great question. We hear this all the time. Ben, before I do that, Ben, did you have another?
There was another question, Mark, from the team. Can this be integrated into the common finance applications to bring financial information, budgets, year-to-dates, etc., and forecasts into the space as well?
Definitely, and I'll park that question and I'll actually showcase how that works and how easy that is these days. So coming back to this question here, what are some of the transition processes to move Project Online to Project for the Web? So first of all, Microsoft communicated and committed that they are going to go through a transition process, because ultimately it is also in the interest of Microsoft to migrate Project Online into the next evolution of technology. So they will provide you tools to do that. However, there's a little bit more behind that. There's a little bit more work behind it, and it depends, you know, how your customization is, etc. Now, we have outlined a 5-year roadmap for all of our customers. And look, I quickly outline that just so that you see conceptually how that is. If you are interested in it, more interested in it, please let me know. And, you know, I'm more than happy to, you know, to go into a little bit more detail. So for us right now, it really is the migration. When we refer to as Sensei Jumpstart or Empower PPM, these are our Project Online products, which the underpinning information is Project Online, into what we refer to as Sensei IQ, which really is the project for the web capability. And really these options that we design for our customers is a 5-year roadmap. So again, you don't have to panic. You can determine, or we will together determine when it is right, when it is the right time to do that. Now, some organizations are quite, you know, are quite keen to do that. So based on these migration options, we actually have several different ways. So the first and the most common, sorry, the first and the easiest one is saying, hey, let me just create a blank sheet, as I like to call it. You know, we have Project Online data, but we may not trust the information, or we may drop Project Online for a while and we want to crank that back up. Then you would just simply start with Project for the Web. So this is really for organizations who are looking for a fresh start, where the current challenges right now is, you know, low user adoption rate, or low data quality, or low consistency of information of the of your Project Online environment. You would then essentially start new. Well, the second one, which I would think will be the most common one is actually a parallel transition. Let's not forget, and Jackie, you actually said it beautifully. Project Online does its job really well, you know, for complex projects, for waterfall projects, it does the trick. There's no reason why you can't extend your audience by saying, hey, now I would also like to invite either other departments through, through Agile, or extend the audience through citizen project managers, and you would then literally implement or utilize Project for the Web in combination with Project Online. By the way, Project Online licenses entitles you to use Project for the Web straight away, of course, without having any additional licenses. So you can run both of them in parallel. And then there will be a third one, and this is really then eventually an in-place transition. Now we build our own for our customers just to make sure that we bring them through the notion. And what that means is you will literally be able to then say, hey, I'm not going to save that project in Project Online. I'm just going to save that existing project into Project for the Web. And then we have the ability to consolidate that. This is right now under construction, and we'll actually work together with Microsoft on some of those areas, and waiting for Microsoft as well to see where they are going. But really for us, this will ultimately be the ability to simply move data from one area into another. So that's really the high-level roadmap that you can consider if you are a Project Online customer. And if you are one of our customers, we will reach out to you anyway. But if you are interested to see more, please let us know. I'm more than happy to to showcase how this is actually working. Yeah, very good question. So this was the first question of, how do we transition Project Online into Project for the Web? The CDS database is only installed on default environments. My IT department will not allow any changes to the default environment, no new entities, no changes. How does one enable Project for the Web and do any sort of customization outside of the default environment? Can there occur? So clearly, whoever asked that question is a very smart technical person, which is great to see. The short answer to this is, right now, you're absolutely right. Project for the Web can only be executed in the default environment. Microsoft is changing that, and I believe in the next coming months you will have the ability actually then to have multiple or determine in which environment you want to have that. And this will be super important for stage gates, dev, test, prod, for example. So at that point in time, you're spot on. If your IT department says, nah, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a Nazi, I'm not going to allow you to do that, then you will have to wait until Project for the Web has the capability of having multiple environments. I expect that to happen in the next 6 months sometime. That being said, our solution right now is actually in the default environment, and that works perfectly fine. I do understand your IT department though, because Microsoft actually recommends not to use your default environment as your production environment. So therefore, I think Microsoft Project for the Web still has a little bit of homework to do in order to provide that. I hope that answers the question. The next one that we had is, hey, can this application be used by project managers and collectively roll up the data, roll up into portfolio views and do portfolio reporting? Well, that's a great question. I think I already showcased a little bit of how this can look like, the combination of Project for the Web and Power Apps with the underlying data source of CDS can do that, of course, very easily. And of course, you can create things like portfolios and can consolidate that. So look, I'm just going to go into a portfolio area. And in my instance, sorry, I always need to look at a different persona. In my instance, I actually created a portfolio, my 2020 IT portfolio, for example, where we use Power Apps, with some, smarts and some sexiness of some, some visualizations. But literally, I have my portfolio, and here are now my related programs and projects. And literally, I have the ability to use, and this is a Project for the Web project, have the ability to use within my portfolios. I have programs and projects, and I can actually very easily create new projects here. What that means from a reporting perspective. So when I manage all of that, including, risks, issues, change requests, again, all of those things, because I use Power BI, of course, I can very easily now consolidate that and provide executive managers with a view of saying, okay, look, these are all of my portfolios, and right now for my year, this is my spend of my organization. But look at that, there are some portfolios where the balance, the variance is not quite right. So let me have a look at them. And of course, you can, drill down into those and you say, okay, well, let me actually look at my portfolio report. And again, this is sort of a one-pager portfolio report where I have the ability to look at my portfolios again with all of my sub-programs and sub-projects. And I can, again, look very easily what the current progress is. And from here, I also have the ability then to drill down further and say, hey, look at this, the trend goes down for this program. Why is that? Let me have a look. And now I'm actually in the program status. The reason why we ensure that this is very consistent is because the data is the same. It just goes further down into the detail where I now have all of my program information, and it's not just tasks and projects, by the way. It is, of course, consolidating all of your, key dates and issues and risks and all of those things. And then from here, of course, you have then the ability to drill down further, let's say, into my project status, and then I have my one page of the project status report. So consolidation of information is key here. It's the common data service that enables us that power. And let's face it, if we have an application and we can't report against it, well, then it's only half an application. Why would I want to maintain information if I can't get the insights of it? And that's really how common data service enables us to consolidate the information into a program, into a portfolio. Cecilia?
I just wanted to let you know we've got about 10 minutes left, and there's about 3 or 4 questions in the chat box as well. So this is a heads up.
Push them through. Push the ones through that are in the chat box first.
So, yep. Mark, you have actually just dealt with a couple around the portfolio. How can you manage the portfolio and multiple projects in the portfolio? You've just covered that one.
Great.
The other good one here is around resourcing, capacity planning, right? That's one we should really get into.
Yeah, great question actually. So again, I'll give you. It's a starting point. So project for the web and project online are not in parity, especially when it comes to resource management. However, common data service is the underlying data structure, not just for project for the web, but actually for Dynamics. That's Microsoft's business cloud. And as part of this enhancement of project for the web, Dynamics actually has a URS, a Unified Resource Service, and what Microsoft is working on right now is it will incorporate the resource management capability as part of their, well, I think it's going to be the October 2020 Dynamics wave, and then you will have the ability to run capacity planning for resources. However, you can actually do this in project online, in project for the web today, based on the assignment of the task. And I'll show you what I mean. Again, I'm just going to go into, let me go into a project view here so that I can show you that. So remember, we have projects and we have tasks, and we were able to assign tasks to resources and assign effort to those. And therefore, of course, I can very easily now look at my project tasks on one hand, so that task-centric view, and I can say, hey, look at my, my future tasks, who is actually going to conduct them. But because I have the ability to toggle that now into project resources, and I can say, hey, these are my project roles that are assigned to my tasks, for example, and I can then drill down and I can say, hey, show me what kind of business analyst do I have? Well, we do have through Power Apps, you have the ability, of course, to extend it, and I can say, well, Jeremy and Deirdre and Fred, they are all business analysts. Well, and what projects do they work? Well, right now they are occupied between the 15th of May and the 30th of the 3rd of September, with 152 hours where completed 120 hours and remaining 32 hours, and you then have the ability to drill down and say, oh, look, they are assigned to this project. Hey, look, they're assigned to those tasks as well. So that kind of capability of, hey, do I over allocate my resource? Yes or no, I can do today. The part that Project Online does very well is that engagement model where you have the ability to request a resource and then the resource manager approves that resource. That is the capability that will come in the foreseeable future. So they will incrementally increase that. And I think this will be part of that big 2020 October release. I hope that answers the question.
Mark, another one good question here is finances. So you showed some finances in the reports. Can you show me how we get that data in? And also talk about the options that we have to look at finances more related around resourcing and scheduling.
Yeah, great question. Again, of course, project management without finances is not project management. Yes, it would be a dream never to think about money, but unfortunately we need to. Again, what we then recommend is extending that capability through Power Apps, model-driven Power Apps, where you actually create your own user interface. And again, I'll give you an example just so that you can see that, again, going back into a particular project. So in that instance, go into my project again. Let's in here, and as I said, we had my tasks and my issues and risks that are nothing else but common data service items. Well, I also have a financials. Now, in our instance, we just put a nice little layer on top of that because we recognize that citizen project managers are not accountants, so therefore it must be quite easy to maintain. And then literally I have the ability to create a new cost item, and I can say, this is my resource cost, or my, my invoice, or my taxi, or my hotel, or whatever kind of cost there is. And you have the ability then to maintain those costs, to the point that when I say, hey, right now we are in June, right? I would like to know what my forecast value is in June, and I have the ability to open that up. And again, these are nothing else but really transactional accounts where I then have the ability to update that. And I can say, oh, look, my software forecast was 12,500. Actual was 19,000, and I can then add a comment, sorry, it went over. Now the alternative, of course, is because it is common data service, I can very easily import the actuals from your accounting system, no matter how I get them, and then just simply display that this way. So this is how financials can be managed. And again, there are just some different things. We like the idea of having that on a quarterly basis or even on an annual basis. And I can say, hey, what was my, what's my actual or forecast for, July 19 to July 20. And you then have the ability to look at that. And I can say, hey, hardware, okay, let me have a look at all of the transaction of hardwares. And then literally I have all of those transactions here and can very easily create a new transaction if I wanted to do that. So we try to make this very intuitive. It needs to become a consumable, you shouldn't need a 3-day training course in order to manage those kinds of things. And that's really what we're trying to do here, including then, of course, the ability for me to say, hey, I've got some key dates in my schedule. Am I actually going on time? Right now I'm in June. There is one key date that is the hardware for infrastructure defined is actually at risk. So you have that kind of capability. Common data service, that's the key. And when you think about it, common data service, again, here is these entities, and I can then just simply say, hey, within that, I would like to include or get data, and that's where I can now incorporate and embed or integrate your line of business systems. Now, this could be a CSV file, this could be a database, this could be a service, this could be anything. You will see that
it doesn't need to be Microsoft either.
No, exactly.
That's the other key question that came through. How do we integrate to non-Microsoft?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be at all. As you can see, the beauty about that is for those customers who are part of Sensei customers, you have the integration hub in Project Online, because there wasn't a capability that Project Online provided us. But hey, now we don't need this anymore, because Common Data Service gives us actually all of these data sources. This could be as easy as an Excel file. It could be as complicated as an Azure database or SQL, or a JSON file, which is a essentially a web service that you can call. So this is the power of Common Data Service. A nice example again. How are we doing with time?
We can also look at resource costs very easily and manage resource costs now fairly easily within Project for the Web, fully driven by the schedule. It doesn't have to be separated using the finance type tool that Mark's just showed as well.
That's right, yeah.
So a couple of minutes left, Mark.
Thank you. So just quickly, I'll go through the other ones. Does Project for the Web have the ability to produce resource usage? Well, I've just showed that. Building dependencies, start, finish, and adding lag times. Now, right now, you saw the dependencies that you can do through the Gantt chart and through the user interface. This is only a start to finish dependency at that point in time. There's no start to start and finish to finish. And to be quite frank, it's not the purpose of it anymore. If you really need that complexity, you should go into Project Online and stay in Project Online because that's what it does well. I, however, assume that over time that capability will move into Project for the Web as well. An overview of project scheduling using Teams. So there was a good question as well. Of course, you can utilize that in Teams. And again, I'm just going to outline that. In here. Oh no, that's not it. Sorry. Here I have an environment, and here's now a Teams site, right? This is nothing else but my Teams environment where I have a Teams. I have that in a channel. And as part of that channel, I actually have a link here called tasks. And as you can see, this is now literally in Teams, and you can manage that easily in Teams, whether this is grid, board, timeline, all of those things. Absolutely. It needs to be every single application going forward. If it doesn't integrate into Teams, it won't be a long-lasting product, no doubt. Project management applications and rolling up into PMO. Well, I've showed you that already. And of course, you can bring this up all the way or down all the way through the usage of, Power BI, etc.
Mark, one last one.
And we already covered some of the reporting areas too.
Benefits. Could you show us quickly the benefits tab?
Oh, yes. So again, extending that, of course, means in my particular environment, I have now the ability to manage dependencies through projects. Again, here is my benefit tab, and I can now either create a benefit without necessarily needing to associate a project just yet, but I can do that later. But in that instance, I can create a new benefit. I'm just going to go into an existing one, and I have a benefit realization. This is the industry standard PMI benefit realization a process that allows you to identify, plan, execute, and sustain a benefit. And right now, I just simply have associated that to a program, but there's no reason why you can't associate that to to an existing project or create in a project that particular benefit. The reason why that's so important is when you think about benefit realization, it's not a project who realizes the benefit. A project actually provides outputs in order to complete a benefit, and the outcomes is really ultimately what the benefit does. So most organizations actually manage benefit as part of a portfolio and then have the ability to distribute that component of output for that benefit to a particular project. Ta-da!
Thanks, Mark. Ben, any other questions from the chat area that we haven't covered off yet?
No, another one came through about can we template? Yeah, we can copy projects now. So we can create template projects and then just copy those. Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
And it keeps all of the relationships and the effort. It just doesn't keep things like actuals if there are actuals and things like that. Yep.
Does it keep the assignment, Ben?
Yes.
Okay. Keeps the resource assignment?
Yes. Yep.
That's sometimes not so good.
But you would set your templates up with the generic resources.
Oh, yes, of course, you would.
You want that. I want that as a PM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, makes sense.
It depends on how you want to build out your schedule, right? Build your templates out in a specific way that are fit for purpose for your enterprise project type.
That makes sense. Yeah, cool. Excellent. I can't believe the time is over already. See, time goes past when you have lots of fun. I hope that this was worth your while. And I hope that you will come back plentiful in our next Ask the Expert session. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Mark. Just a bit of at the end, I want to let you know that we recorded this session, so we'll send that out to all of you once we got it ready. Also, we're going to send out an evaluation survey form. So we really appreciate any feedback to make sure that we keep on improving and making these sessions as valuable as possible for you. Also, keep an eye on LinkedIn because we share all the sessions that are coming up, the recordings through our LinkedIn channel as well. And we'll also start doing some polls so you can help influence even more what these sessions might be about. So yeah, whatever input we can get from you guys is very valuable to us. So thank you all for attending.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hope to see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.